Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO44 coming at you with another video. All right, good morning. Hopefully, this video will last the duration of my meal because I have yet to eat. Just decided to get some content going before that process, and thinking about the Denver Nuggets rumor that's going around. I don't really believe too many trade rumors right now. You know, the song I'm singing, I just don't expect many trades at all. But that doesn't mean they won't happen. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the rumor I'm listening to isn't interesting to me. And the rumor that I've been listening to today has been the idea that the Denver Nuggets would be willing to move Michael Porter Jr. and, of course, move on from Zeke Najee's $9 million contract for the next 3 or 4 years. Very, very bad contract. Um, for Zach LaVine. And, you know, it's a lot of urgency coming from certain Laker heads talking about Zach LaVine. They've been talking about Zach LaVine for a little while now, rumoring him to come to the Lakers, making a case for him to come to the Lakers. I have said no. I still feel that way. I'm not changing my mind. I understand if he were, on our team, we'd have that third star. There may be some things that have to do with his injury history that might be overblown. I'm not lost upon the type of season he's having or just how good the fit could potentially be here, although I think the fit actually may be a little better in Denver, believe it or not. But Zach LaVine, the player, would be great for the Lakers. Zach LaVine, the contract, would be cancer for the Lakers. And that's the reality of it. He's going to have an opt-in that's going to pay him upwards of $50 million in 2026, 2027. I can't see anybody thinking that's a good contract. Now, you could move that contract, that trade deadline, as an expiring contract for $50 million, as to which no telling what will be available to you in the market at that moment. Maybe it could be a good idea to trade him then, but the point is you're going to be no hook for that, and there's no guarantee anybody will take it. You see what's going on with Ben Simmons. You know how the Nets would have loved to give away Ben Simmons over the last 3 years, but they couldn't move him because the contract, of course, was no good. Philly, same thing. They paid him that amount, and it was all bad. Now, I do think that Zach LaVine is a much more covetable, much more fittable player. He's a better player to have than Ben Simmons. So it's not necessarily the same thing, but he's actually making $10 million more than Ben Simmons on almost $50 million at the end of that contract. So with people being on that contract, on the hook for that contract through 2026, 2027, I just don't think that's a contract to acquire until then. That's how I feel. And if he's still a very nice player at that point, then it shouldn't be hard to get him as a rental for an exorbitant amount that's expiring. But as long as you're on the hook for that, with the injury history, even though people are saying it's overblown, it's not something that I'm going to ignore because I know that he's had 2 knee surgeries. Most people are not considering that, but I distinctively remember the knee surgery he had with the Minnesota Timberwolves. I was paying attention to him as a player. I liked him as a player then. I thought he had a chance to be a really good point guard back then. He's turned into a shooting guard who was really good, but he was somebody I wanted the Lakers to have back then. And when he had that knee injury, I was like, uh-oh. And he came back and won 2 dunk contests after that? Or did he win, or did he get snubbed by Gordon? I don't remember. But I know it was a lot of controversy with both of the dunk contests with those 2 players in it. But nevertheless, Zach LaVine is a freak of nature. He's a very, very talented scorer. He's having a hell of a season. And is it out of the realms of possibility that he eventually plays up that contract if healthy? Not based on what we're seeing. He's not playing like someone who's not a star player, put it like that. But that doesn't mean that I trust that that's going to be a contract worth having. And most importantly, the idea that he isn't coveted around the league means that whoever does pick him up now has that problem. Now, you can commit to letting that contract age, and like I said, when it's time for him to opt into it, for which he will 100% do, then you probably have some takers that will be able to, see themselves taking that contract for expiring amounts to help them the summer of 27. 28. So that's really what it comes down to, man. I think that contract is horrible. I really do. The interesting thing about it is, though, Denver has a horrible contract, and that Zeke Naji contract, they're on the hook $8.8 million for the next 5 years. I don't know what Denver's doing. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't think Denver's got the right people running things right now. And they don't have their picks. I don't know exactly what they gave their picks up for. It might have been Eric Gordon. Not Aaron Gordon, excuse me. So I'm not really sure why they don't have their picks, because it doesn't seem to me that they've made a lot of trades. The only trade I can think of is Gordon. Did they give their picks to Orlando for Gordon? They won a championship. Maybe they don't regret it, but that's kind of hurt them with the coupling with paying Porter and him kind of only being a jump shooter. I mean, he looks like a world beater against the Lakers, but like in a lot of games, you look up and Porter's not doing anything at all. I like Porter personally because I'm a Laker fan and he always kills us. There's two ways Porter always hurts us. With efficiency, he literally had a game where he didn't miss a shot. He took like 12 shots, hit every last one of them. And boards, he's an extremely difficult player to match up with because he's damn near 7 feet as a true shooting small forward. So what he ends up doing when you have Gordon and Jokic with those three together is making it damn near impossible for the unit that the Lakers have to actually win a rebounding situation. So I think moving on for him for Denver may be a pure contractual situation, and maybe they don't think that his health is worth investing in any further. Although I think the worst of his health is behind him. You know, they dealt with him having a back injury all the time that they had him, still paid him $35 million a year. He went on to be an NBA champion for them. And really is, as I said, a mismatch problem for most teams that don't have massive players. So for me, I'm not too thrilled about moving on from him if I'm Denver. But to bring in Zach LaVine, who I think could be an excellent weapon for Jokic, from a pure basketball standpoint, they may see that as an upgrade. But I would caution them to say, once you bring in Zach LaVine, you may have gotten more explosive, but you also got smaller. And the thing that makes Denver is the fact that they have all that size. Now, they may see this as an opportunity to get rid of that Zeke Nnaji contract, which nobody thinks is going to be any good at any given year throughout the course of the next 5 years. And that may be the motivating factor for why they would be willing to take on a Zach LaVine contract. Zach LaVine's contract is worse. To some, I don't know that it is. When you consider it's only $8-9 million going to Zeke Nnaji, obviously that's a whole lot less. But when you consider how the production goes for Zeke Nnaji, I could say that I believe that Zeke Nnaji's contract production versus pay is maybe slightly worse than Zach LaVine's. But when you think about the absorbent amount of pay that Zach LaVine is getting and how difficult it is to put stuff around that contract because it's making so much, with the production being moderately worth half of that or maybe a little more than half of that, then you understand why both of these contracts are horrible. But if I had to choose between one or the other, I'm probably going to say that I would rather have Zach LaVine per what he provides than the Zeke Nnaji, who's really not really good at all, making almost $10 million a year for the next 4 years. I want that contract completely obliterated if I'm anybody in the league, and the Denver Nuggets just so happen to pay him that. So at least with Zach LaVine, you could see a world where over the next 3 years he's still Zach LaVine. If he doesn't get hurt, he's still Zach LaVine. He's probably going to average 22, 23 points, maybe even more with Jokic passing the rock to him. So I totally see the need to move the Zeke Nnaji contract, and I totally see no path to you doing that unless you take on Zach LaVine. Because I don't see nobody else that would. I don't think there's a worse contract, really, that I've seen. I don't think so. That Zeke Nnaji contract is ridiculous. Like, I could argue that dude should be in China. He's making $10 million a year. It's absolutely insane. So the reality, and it's not just that he's making $10 million a year. It's that he's making $10 million a year for the next 5 years. Like it's literally the worst contract I may have ever seen, bro. Truly. So when I consider that, even though it's only making $10 million, I say Denver really needs to get that thing the hell out of here. And so does everybody else. And the only team that you're going to find is somebody like Chicago, who desperately needs to get rid of Zach LaVine. But I'll tell you this. As we continue to go forward with the Zach LaVine contract in Chicago, I think the urgency to move the Zach LaVine contract should have calmed down some now that the play of Zach LaVine has raised and the overall desire for Zach LaVine has now increased. When you consider teams are starting to look at Zach and say, you know, he's playing all right. Once you see another bidder come into the fold or a bidder coming to the fold, now you see the corner being turned on the Zach LaVine contract. Now I know they want to move on from it because they don't want to be on the hook for it for any reason. But as I've said a million times, over the last 2 days specifically, if I'm looking to tank, I don't have to unload everything. I just need to unload the stuff that's going to be fighting tooth and nail to make me better against my intention to tank. Zach LaVine is not going to do that to the Chicago Bulls. Now, I can argue they need to unload everything else. They got rid of DeMar DeRozan. Lonzo Ball's expiring right now. The Pat Williams contract, he's a young player. It's an awful contract, but he's a young player, so he's not going to hurt your tank either. If I unload everything not named Zach LaVine and Pat Will, assuming I have my picks, I should be able to lose enough games to get a top 5 pick. They're not going to overwhelm teams if that's all you got. Now, I can argue maybe they want to hold on to Kobe White as a guy who's really come along, a young player you probably don't want to get rid of for any reason. And if you have the 3 of them, now you're pushing it as it pertains to your rebuild. So I can respect the need to move on from more than just that, for which I've described, because, hey, if I want to keep Kobe White, I can't have Pat Will, I can't have Vucevic, I can't have all these players. I think Chicago wants to rebuild. I don't believe they think their ceiling is high enough to really compete in the Eastern Conference, despite paying all this money for all these players. But that's the point. It's like, because they've given so many players so many bad contracts, now they're in a space where unloading that stuff is difficult. And so the urgency to move a Zach LaVine once somebody decides they might want him might be there. But when you look at what you're taking back, now you see yourself taking back a Zeke Nazi contract that you know damn well is dead weight. It's dead weight. So for my rebuild, I don't know if I'm not better for just keeping that Zeke Nazi contract the hell away from me. And if I'm Denver, I'm not making a trade for Zach LaVine unless you're willing to take that contract. That's probably the perk for taking the Zach LaVine contract. So I think I know this is going to sound a little strange, but if I'm Chicago, I probably is going to keep on looking around for more suitors for Zach LaVine, hoping a team like the Lakers will just bite and see the urgency of maybe getting Zach LaVine based on the interests of the Denver Nuggets. But as I tell you, right now, as a Laker fan, I'm still not moved by that. If I'm the Lakers, I don't want that contract. I don't care what he could potentially do for me. I'm not taking on a $50 million contract for Zach LaVine. 3 years from now, when LeBron James could be gone, will be gone, and likely, like, we're going to be stuck on a year and a half of Zach LaVine upon LeBron's departure. That's just not making any sense at $50 million a year. We're going to want to rebuild, and we're going to have a hard time getting rid of that contract, just like Chicago is right now. It's just a bad situation to set up for it when you know your rebuild is imminent. So for me, it's like, I don't think that that's going to work. But maybe they find a third team that may show some interest in Zach LaVine, maybe Chicago or something. Miami or something. Although I doubt it. But, like, if we're here where Denver actually wants him now, maybe we can wait a little longer and maybe somebody else will come around, and then create a real bidding war where otherwise there hasn't been one for Zach LaVine. But at the same time, you risk him going down with injury again, for which everybody wants to tell us that the injuries are overblown, you know what I mean? That he's not actually as injured as everybody says he is. But if that's the case, then why is everybody still hesitant to bid for this very good player? See what I'm saying? It's like, I'm going to pay attention to the field in regards to Zach LaVine. If the field starts to show a little interest in him, then maybe I start thinking there might be some way for me to acquire that contract and be able to unload that contract if I desire to. But as long as it's difficult for Chicago to move it, I don't want it. You feel me? That's how it goes. It's exactly how that goes. And that's really what it is. I'm not bringing myself something nobody wants. I got plenty of that if I'm the Lakers. And so, but the Denver Nuggets situation is so different because now, to me, it seems like they have a vision that they want small athletic players on their team for some reason, little guys that are going to dart around really fast and jump high. They brought Russell Westbrook to this situation. Now they want to bring Zach LaVine to this situation. I get it. Hyper athletic guards can be really exciting, especially surrounding Jokic. But the pace now becomes a bit strange because you have Jokic, who is going to move the ball, who's fast, but he's not moving very fast. So I think what you're going to have is speed demons running down the court and him trying to keep up with him to a degree. Now, that may be made up in the ball movement. The ball's faster than the person. That may be made up that way because he's such a genius passer of the highest order that it may equate to him being able to utilize his guys rather well. But I think at the end of the day, what you're going to end up finding is that you're putting more pressure on him to rebound the ball, more pressure on him to be a plus defender, and you're taking away some of the things that made it so that his job was easier in that regard, which is the size. So I don't think they got the right idea here in that vision. I understand wanting fast players, and you go up against De'Aaron Fox and John Moran enough times, you definitely want fast players. But at the end of the day, if I'm going to have a deficiency in size by doing so, I'm probably not better for it. If I'm the Denver Nuggets, especially when those players are going to be on contracts that are hard to move. Now you're bringing yourself Jokic and Zach LaVine. Okay, what do you have next to it? A bunch of players that really can't move that well. In terms of you can't move them, not necessarily on the floor in real life. I'm talking about you don't have the ability to necessarily garner value for some of those pieces that Denver has. Hopefully Julian Strawther turns into something. Christian Braun is playing better, so you can see him turning into something potentially. But are you not pushing Christian Braun down the pecking order when you bring in Zach LaVine? I mean, Christian Braun is one of your better young players. He's a nice defensive player whose three-point shot is coming around, has a lot of athleticism. Are you not overdoing that that mold, so to speak? Christian Braun, Russell Westbrook, Zach LaVine. You got a lot of guys at about 6'4" that can jump out the gym. The only one that can really shoot is Zach. And he's on the biggest contract. So it's like, are you now is he expendable at this point, Christian Braun? Like, do you need him as much? Are you going to move Russell? What's the word with Russell? Didn't they give him like a 2-year or 3-year contract? I'm not really certain. So it's like a lot of stuff about that vision that Denver has just tells me it's a bit misguided. Somebody in that organization is just developing affinity for 6'4" fast jumpers, which is really cool. But if you don't have size in this league, you're a damn fool, because that's really what it's about right now. You need size. You're not beating Denver. You're not beating OKC. You're not beating Wemby. You're not beating anybody. You're not beating Dallas if you don't have size. And one of the things that Denver has had is a lot of big players. And one by one, they're getting rid of the big guys. Not to mention that you still got Jamal Murray on the biggest contract in the world. So now you're going to have Zach LaVine, Jamal Murray, Russell Westbrook, Christian Braun. And you think that's going to get you where you need to go? Those are small players. All those people are short. So like, I don't believe small ball surrounding Jokic with a bunch of small people is the best way to go, man. I really don't. I don't think you're better. I think this is a step toward making the Denver Nuggets what they used to be. It's a very bad team. These are the things that teams do to make themselves bad, to continue the course of being bad. You know, I'm just being honest. When you're in a small market and you suddenly have this vision about doing certain things that break the mold that has ultimately helped you win. The Lakers did the same thing when we brought in Russell Westbrook. We had something that worked. We won a championship with it, but we had an idea. And we just got this bright idea and we executed it and we regretted it. I have no doubt that the Denver Nuggets are doing the same thing by moving a championship core for Zach LaVine's contract, for which is not desirable in the league, slapping it next to the small players that we've already mentioned. I don't think this is any good. Not unless they keep moving stuff around. Then what happens with Gordon? Now you're putting more pressure on Gordon to stay healthy. He's getting older. He put more pressure on him to develop, produce. Christian Watson's a nice piece. Are you going to have his money when it's time to pay him? Because if not, you're going to lose him. He's a covetable piece, one of the better shot blockers at the power forward position in entire basketball. He's playing behind Gordon right now. Are you going to slip him in at the 3 spot? Does that even work? Are you going to have him coming off the bench going forward with all these people making absorbent contracts around him, so which his money ain't going to be there, so you're going to lose him? I don't think so, man. Maybe keep him. Maybe what you need to do is move Porter for more diversified pieces, not necessarily moving Porter for a horrible contract. You see what I'm saying? If you're gonna move Porter and make yourself devoid of the size he provides, why not move him for multiple pieces that give you the flexibility to replace the size? Instead of bringing yourself a potential bad contract because you like the fit and just have this desire to have fast footage, small people running around. I just know the vision is trash. And I know that the people who've been paying guys like Zeke Naji all this money and overpaying for Porter, overpaying for Murray are still making decisions to run the Denver Nuggets into the space where they're gonna be, which ain't gonna be championship. I'll tell you that. So I don't know. The first thing you think about in this situation is they need to diversify. You need more bodies making the amount that one body is making. You need that. Whether you know it or not, that's what Denver needs. They've always had an issue with depth, but they were able to win a championship despite being a team that didn't really have a lot of it. Now you move yourself into a situation where you don't want to keep the same pieces, but you want to have the same problem. And you're hoping hypothetically that it fits, but you don't actually know that it does. Because some of these people fit with Jokic, but do they fit with one another if Jokic goes down? Can you win a single basketball game with all these little people if Jokic goes down? So, like, this is the type of stuff that people don't think about. They just want to go after what their vision is. Some guy had a dream that Russell Westbrook and Zach LaVine would dunk a million times in a game and put people in positions to feel great about the Denver Nuggets. And I'm telling you, that person, whoever that person is, they need to be fired. Franchise health is what we practice on this channel. We talk about franchise health because the Lakers ultimately have a problem with doing things that are healthy for their franchise in this regard. Diversified contracts, player development, keeping picks in hand, good contracts. Like, these are the things we've been talking about for 5 years. 4 years, however long this channel's been going on in regards to that. And the Denver Nuggets are making all the wrong decisions. They're not bringing themselves any picks. They're bringing themselves bad contracts. They're paying people too much, and so on and so forth. And you got one of the best players in basketball on your team with a timeline demanding to win. You're going to lose him, Denver. You keep this up, you're going to lose him. I'm telling you, Jokers do not need to sit in Denver surrounded by a bunch of leapers that possibly get injured. You don't need that. I like the idea of him and Zach LaVine in a nutshell, but the contracts that you've paid have made it so that this team is going to be very top heavy, but not reliant to stay healthy. Not reliable health wise. And that, I'm telling you, is a bad vision. It's a bad vision. Especially when you won with size. If you ain't going to learn from the Lakers when we decreased ourselves to size to make a vision happen that ended up hurting us for the long run. If you're not going to learn that, you're going to find out that you are going to make the same mistake the Lakers did and have the same problems the Lakers did, if not more, because at least we have the LA market. You don't have that. So, I don't know, man. I think Denver needs to clean house. Before they do anything, they need to clean house. Whoever is making decisions for them, paying Zeke Naji, paying Porter, paying Murray, getting Russell, they just needed to have Russell Westbrook. Yeah, this is a bad thing they're doing, and it's not helping their situation at all. And bringing them Zach LaVine is just another step in that same direction, and I don't agree with it. Not for them. Not for them. So, yeah, that's what I want to say, man. As far as Chicago, hey, man, this may be your ticket to get rid of Zach LaVine, but I could argue we're on the precipice of more demands potentially being manifested for Zach LaVine. I think more teams may see him. It may not be that bad, to bring in Zach LaVine, or maybe be willing to up their price for paying for Zach LaVine as he continues to play well. The risk is that he goes back to being hurt, but you don't want to execute a trade that's going to bring you back more bad in that same vein. Injury-prone players, kind of one-dimensional, bad contract attached to it in Porter and Naji. Like, to move Zach LaVine makes all the sense in the world, but if you're going to bring back more untradeable crap, that's going to be hurt all the time, that ain't going to get you over the top, that's not going to be able to be traded for anything more than what you traded it for, isn't that just the same as Zach LaVine, only less desirable in a way? Because now you're starting over in regards to making it so that the value can be increased in your situation. At least you're on the path of the value being increased in your situation as Zach LaVine, which is why Denver's ready to give you trash for him. You bring yourself Porter, and he has another back issue. Now you're stuck on his $35 million contract that's not going to get you over the top in the Eastern Conference. And you got that Zeke Nazi poison pill that probably should be bought out immediately. That's not really trading Zach LaVine. That's just bringing yourself back up more problems. You would do better just keeping Zach LaVine in that situation. So these are the type of things that teams, that GMs need to be aware of. You're on the verge of being fleeced. That's what's happening. You're on the verge of being fleeced by somebody with a dream and an idea that they can move on from Zeke Nazi. That's exactly what's happening there, from my standpoint. And I don't think either one of these organizations should keep their front offices. I think both of these organizations need to fire their front offices. I really do. Denver, they need to overhaul in that front office for the vision that bring Russell Westbrook to them alone is something that needs to be overhauled. Zeke Nazi and Russell Westbrook were fireable offenses, in my opinion, that they just had to have Russell Westbrook told me they know what the hell they were doing. And so these are things that are real to me, man. You know, when I think of Jokic, the thing that I'm thinking about is continuing to take pressure off of him. Size-wise, good catch and shoot talent, which Zach LaVine could potentially be. Speed is great. You'd love to have it. That's definitely a must. But the size is just as important. You want to keep size around Jokic so that you can overload guys like Anthony Davis, overload guys like Sabonis, overload the centers in Denver with size. Because if they can throw 3 and 4 centers at him and it's only him, you suddenly become a bit compromised in several ways. So the Porter piece is important for Denver. It's a better contract for them than Zach potentially, because it's making less money. It's a proven championship player in your situation. And next to Gordon and Jokic, provides a great deal of size that has you over rebounding really everybody. So that's what I think. I just think the Denver Nuggets need to diversify, continue to try to develop Julian Strawther and Christian Brown and whoever else they have young. They really had an unfortunate situation take place with their rookie this year. What's his name? Duran. Not sure. I can't think of his name, but I really like the player. But he went down with an injury, and that's a big part of the problem. They traded up to get that guy, and then he went down in preseason. But he's going to play a role on their team if he comes back healthy next year. He's going to be a good player. I don't doubt that. His skill set is stretched for with some size. So I really like the player. Hopefully he comes back healthy for them, and maybe that gives them a little insurance for the size that may be going out if they move Porter. But he's a pure 4. He's not a 3 like Porter. It's not going to be the same dynamic. You're going to have him overhauling Gordon and Watson. He's going to be kind of in that mix. So it's not something that you think about right now if you're Denver, but if you traded up to get him, you don't mind waiting on him to get healthy. I think he did go down with an Achilles, though, so you don't know if he's going to come back the same way. It would have been better if this was a torn meniscus or something, but that's an Achilles for that rookie. And if I'm not mistaken, he's a 4-year rookie. So he's a bit older. So it's a lot of stuff that you consider when you talk about their power forward position. I don't think they're necessarily lacking in that position, but if you're going to move Porter at the 3 at almost 7 feet and replace him with Zach, who's like 6'5", 6'6", you're going to be lacking in some size, man. And if all these players have issues injury-wise, then you're not going to really see an increase in your availability that you think getting rid of Porter could potentially provide you. So I hate it for both teams, really. I mean, Chicago, Porter and Chicago don't do nothing for me. I don't know what that's really going to do. It'd be best if they make that trade to probably find another place for Porter in the 3-team deal situation and try to take back maybe some young talent or some picks, if at all possible. I know they don't want to take back bad contracts, neither does Denver in theory. So I don't know how you do that, but I don't think Porter is going to change life for Chicago. I don't think he helps their timeline, and as it pertains to one to rebuild, I don't think it really does anything other than help them get rid of a Zach LaVine contract. I don't know what they're doing there. Giddy's going to be a free agent in a year and a half, I think, a year from now. He's only making $9 million, so he's going to have to be paid. Are they interested in paying Giddy? Would they be willing to move him? Why not move him now? Like, what is Chicago doing that makes it so that they need to do anything win now at all? If you're moving Vucevic, if you're moving Zach LaVine, potentially moving expiring Lonzo, you're not re-signing him. Why are you bringing yourself Porter, and what are you doing with Giddy? Kobe White, Giddy, Porter? Is that the vision? Doesn't suck, but I'm not seeing that. And then maybe you get lucky and you get the first overall pick. Add what? Flag to that situation? Is that the vision? Like, I don't know. I don't hate it, but I don't think it's enough. Pat Will. I don't know, man. So that's really my take on things. I'm trying to see the vision of what the Chicago Bulls are looking at, and to be honest with you, I don't really see it. Kobe White's in there, of course. You mix Kobe White and Porter. Are you turning yourself into a 3-point shooting team? Ball movement, Giddy. I don't know, man. I really don't know. I'm not sure what's there is any better than what they have right now. So if you're gonna move on from win now pieces, the idea is to give yourself better win now pieces. But some of your win now pieces, you're only gonna be able to move them for win now pieces. Essentially, what I'm seeing there. So, it's a cloudy vision there for the Chicago Bulls. All the more reason why I think they need to just pick a timeline and unload a bunch of stuff and not bring back stuff that's ultimately gonna be on the same timeline. So I don't know, man. I'm lost there, but I think if Chicago is serious about winning, they're gonna tear it down and build it back up differently. That's what they're gonna do. They're gonna move a lot of that stuff. It wouldn't be much but Kobe White and Buzelis left if I was running things. I'd move everything, bro. Honestly, I'd move everything for anything that can garner me picks. So, for example, if I can get somebody to give me a first round pick and maybe some contracts that would be expiring, I don't know how you do that if you're Chicago. I really don't. Maybe young players, since you might not be able to get picks, but maybe you can get some young players or a plethora of second rounders, which could equate to a first rounder. That might be the way to get that value. But you don't want to take back bad contracts, which is hard in trying to ask people to take not so great contracts and bring you picks. So it's a real tricky situation for Chicago. Their fix is not simple for the need to match salaries in any trade and the need to get picks in a rebuilding spot. You may not be able to rebuild based on all these bad contracts that you have on your books. So you're trying to mix and match stuff that you think fits better at the same timeline and just go forward. I mean, for me, it's like when I look at a situation like this in Chicago, what I'm thinking is I'm trying to move one contract a year. I'm in a no man's list situation that's going to take about 4 years to fix. Some of these contracts are going to be on my books regardless. I may not be able to move Pat Will right now. I'm definitely not re-signing anybody because all this bad contract crap on my books is not making me good enough, and me re-signing people is just going to make it worse. So Giddy's going to be gone soon, and if I could attach Giddy to one of those bad contracts that I have, if I can move Giddy and Pat Will in the same deal, I'm doing that. And if I can get one of those going a year, I'm happy. Maybe Vucevic the first one you can move. I'm moving Vucevic, get him out of here. And that may be the only thing I can do with the trade deadline right now. But next year, and come the summer, I'm going to try to move Pat Will. Or I'm going to try to move whatever the other bad contract is. Maybe Zach LaVine this upcoming summer. Okay, cool. Next trade deadline, the goal is to move another one of them bad contracts somehow. I'm not necessarily thinking about taking back picks of equity right now. I'm just positioning myself to be able to execute a rebuild, but it's going to be a slow burn because there's no way to really do this right away unless I get lucky and somebody just wants all this crap, right? But that's kind of how I would look at it. If I'm the Chicago Bulls, you just got to take your time, set a 7-year plan. I know it's long, but you got a lot of problems because you've got a lot of bad contracts, and a need to take back salary in order to move those contracts, for which you probably don't want to do. So if anything, I'm just trying to get back contracts of less years, the same amount, less years. So if I got a bad contract at 4 or 5 years, I'm trying to move it for something that maybe is 3 years. You see what I'm saying? And just keep your natural born picks if you have them, and draft it slowly but surely. Because you got Booz Ellis behind you. You got Ayo Dosunmu, who you're probably going to have to move in order to get rid of some bad contracts, which is devastating in and of itself. But I hear they're shopping him anyway. So maybe they've already worked that loss into the equation, or even don't see that as a loss, even though it really is. I try to hold on to Dosunmu if I'm them. But like, This is how you fix Chicago, man. Not necessarily bringing yourself Porter per se, although he is, again, a lesser contract. But now you're bringing in an anchor contract with it in Zeke Nnaji, so it doesn't have the same. It doesn't hit the same. Unless you tell yourself you're going to stretch that Zeke Nnaji when you get it, or that you can afford to just set him aside as a $10 million deadweight piece for the next 5 years and maybe try to move it halfway through it, hopefully play his value up somehow. But like, that's not a win to me. That's not a win to me. So I think people in Chicago may fear the Zach LaVine contract and him opting in that 3rd year from now, probably more than they should in comparison to what it is they're actually about to bring themselves. That's what I think. Everything's worse than Zach LaVine, and it's probably that crap that Denver's about to send you. So these are things that you come to me, I'm gonna tell you the truth, man. And the CBA could change, so it could change what you're looking at there. I don't doubt that. Just like they threw the CBA in here, they can easily move it around or move it out or make it worse. Just some stuff is like, you just got to be safe in this era because you don't know what's going to happen next if you are a GM and an owner. So, you know what I mean, man? The Chicago thing is not an easy fix, but I already have a plan. I'm moving one contract every 6 months, basically. One bad contract per year. And we'll get it done if that's going to be what we do. So I don't know. That's what I would do if I'm Chicago. And if I'm Denver, I'm moving Porter for diversified pieces. I'm moving him for like 3 guys. For example, the Lakers. If the Lakers are willing to give me expiring D'Lo, Rui Hachimura, and some other guy, that would be the kind of trade I'd want to do if I'm Denver. Now, if I'm the Lakers, not so excited about that. I'm not sitting here saying that's what I want as a Laker fan. I'm saying as a Denver fan or a Denver GM, that's the kind of thing I want to do for Porter, to make it so that I have more pieces represented in that amount next to them other contracts that are so big, pointed at 1 or 2 people. With Jokic making trillions of dollars, Murray making trillions of dollars, Gordon on a $100 million contract, Zeke Nnaji on some garbage. You know what I mean? Needing to pay Christian Brown, needing to pay Peyton Watson, needing to pay Julian Strawther within the next 3 years. I want diversified pieces instead of all of my money into like 4 guys, 5 guys. It's just not good. It's not good for a team without picks to have that be their dynamic. So that's what I'm doing. That's my fix for Denver. I'm just going to try to get a little depth going, probably have a 2-year span where we have depth, and try to watch my picks replenish over the next several years. I don't think Denver's ceiling is championship, but when you got Jokic, you never know. But the best thing you can do for a guy like Jokic is just get him a bunch of good catch and shoot players, enough size that he can rebound with, as we've already said twice in the video. So, that's kind of how I see it, man. These are the fixes I have for those 2 teams. It's not an easy fix, but owning a franchise is not a one-year thing like a lot of fans believe it is. You got to have a plan for many years so that you can have buying power and young talent flushed into your lineup as the NBA changes. Or you're going to be stuck with old crap that's making too much money and watch all the talent fly by you around you. You know what I mean? You can keep, that's going to be your mentality. And that'll be a reality. So that's pretty much what I got to say. I appreciate everybody for watching BDL 44, and I'm out.